Chris, as a forecaster, how are you seeing climate change impact the way we do forecasts?
For example, the heat dome of a couple of years ago, when it was unprecedented heat at the mid and lower levels of the atmosphere, with all kinds of devastating consequences from human health to marine life to forests to fires in the interior.
Okay, hold up. One solution to the extreme weather that we know we'll get more of is scaling forecasts to the needs of individual communities. And to do that, we need tailor-made data. People in Indigenous communities where disasters struck are calling for their own weather stations. Patrick Michel is the former chief of the Kanaka Bar First Nation outside Lytton, British Columbia.
Kanaka Bar invested in 3 weather stations, one at Lower Kanaka, one at Middle Kanaka, and I'm currently standing by the weather station at Upper Kanaka. At the top is a weather vane, which measures wind direction and speed. In the middle is a thermometer that measures, of course, daily temperature. And behind me is a tub that measures precipitation. Since they've been erected, we're recording 24/7, 365 wind, temperature, and rain. And this weather also allows us to prepare our climate change preparation plans for water security, food security, and homes. Because in order to be resilient, which we define as the ability to shelter in place during an extreme weather event, you need to have site-specific data. On average, in the summertime, Kanaka Bar is 5 degrees cooler than Lytton, and in the wintertime, Kanaka Bar is 5 degrees warmer than Lytton.
Oh my God, look at that.
When Lytton hit the national weather temperature of 49.6 back in June of 2021, Kanaka Bar's weather stations were recording temperatures in excess of 53 degrees Celsius. So we encourage communities, Indigenous or municipal, to invest in their other weather stations, because with your site-specific data, you can prepare your community for the extreme weather events and other catastrophes that they trigger.
Chris, I'll never forget, going back to the heat dome, when we first saw indications of it in the long-range models. It's something that looked like an outlier because it was so unprecedented, but those are the events, those unprecedented potentials that we might have to start paying attention to.
Yeah, you bet. Like meteorologists, a lot of them couldn't really wrap their heads around just how anomalous that ridge was going to be, and it wasn't until it got a few days out and every model that we used was telling us this is going to be an unprecedented event that finally they got to the point where they could start forecasting surface temperatures close to what they ultimately got to.
So in the future, we'll have to keep an eye out for those events that we might have dismissed in the past.
That's right, as unrealistic. Oh, that's too cold, or that's too hot, or that's too wet, or that's too windy. Well, we have to be ready. It's now part of our world.
The need to be awake to the extreme variability of weather inspires art. Art that is useful for science. Let's go to Fogo Island, Newfoundland. That's where artist Liam Gillick has built his installation entitled A Variability Quantifier, aka the Fogo Island Red Weather Station. Gillick's artwork, in the form of a typical fishing stage structure, doubles as an operational weather station, gathering local weather data, all the while open to the public to visit.
In this time in history, we need more data gathering. There's not as much as you would think out there, and I kind of used my art project to try and contribute to the science of this, right? Not make a picture of it or make a metaphor about it, but actually, offer another way of contributing to knowledge.
The island hasn't really had an official weather station for a long time. There were some private ones, which were, but they weren't really feeding into the system.
The data we're gathering is checking like wind speed, rainfall, and temperature, and these all vary, so it's quantifying the variables. You're kind of like sharing an idea, and people would sort of pitch in with something and show you and educate you. So as an artist, you end up leaving kind of smarter and more humble than when you arrived, and that doesn't happen every day. If I can do a little bit, and people on the island can do a little bit to contribute to that global data, then I think that's something important.